So imagine waking up one day and bam, you're hurled back tens of millions of years into the Mesozoic era, the so-called age of dinosaurs. Sounds exciting, right? Like the ultimate adventure? Well, buckle up, because this prehistoric world was not a place for modern humans. If you think you could just walk around, pet a dinosaur, and take selfies with the Triceratops, you're about as prepared as a goldfish at a shark convention. Here's the harsh truth. You wouldn't survive for long. And that's not just because of the dinosaurs themselves. The environment, the atmosphere, the plants, the diseases, even the bugs, everything is rigged against you. Let's start with the environment and climate, because that shapes everything else. The Mesozoic era lasted roughly 180 million years, spanning the Triassic, Jurassic, and Cretaceous periods, and throughout that time, the planet looked nothing like it does today. The continents were moving, starting as one supercontinent called Pangaea, which gradually split into the landmasses we recognize. This movement affected ocean currents, climate zones, and ecosystems, meaning you could step from a scorching desert into a humid jungle in a matter of miles. But unlike the temperate zones we enjoy today, much of the world was dominated by hot, humid climates with little to no polar ice caps. Average temperatures were higher, and CO2 levels were often several times today's concentration. You're basically dropped into a giant greenhouse with patchy air quality. Breathing in this atmosphere wouldn't be as straightforward as it sounds. The oxygen content fluctuated over time, sometimes lower than today's 21%, sometimes higher, but the balance wasn't stable. In some periods, oxygen may have dipped as low as 15%, making physical exertion much more difficult for a modern human. Plus, the air was thick with spores, pollen, and microbial life unknown to your lungs. Asthma attacks or allergic reactions? Probably instant. Also, humidity was brutal, often approaching near saturation, which means sweat doesn't evaporate and your body can't cool down properly. Heat exhaustion and dehydration would be serious risks within hours of exposure. Now, plants and food sources in this era were very different from anything we're used to. Most of the plants we eat today, flowering plants, fruits, vegetables, grains, only really flourished in the late Cretaceous or after the dinosaurs went extinct. Early on, the landscape was dominated by gymnosperms like cycads, conifers, and ginkgo trees, and even ferns covered huge areas. But many of these plants are tough, fibrous, and full of toxins or compounds that humans can't digest. If you thought grabbing a random leaf or berry was safe, think again. Some plants contain neurotoxins or irritants that would make you violently ill or worse. So your usual hunter-gatherer skills wouldn't work without extensive botanical knowledge. And forget farming or domesticating animals. There were no livestock, no crops, no stored food. You'd be on constant survival mode. Hunting small animals or scavenging would be the only options, but that's where things get really grim. Early dinosaurs and reptiles weren't just big animals walking around aimlessly. They evolved in complex ecosystems where predation pressure was intense. Small carnivorous dinosaurs like Velociraptor and Deinonychus were fast, agile pack hunters with sharp claws and teeth designed for ripping flesh. Their intelligence was higher than previously thought, with keen senses and hunting strategies. If you're running around barefoot and unarmed, you're basically a walking snack bar. And their speed. Raptors could likely sprint over 40 miles per hour, faster than any untrained human. You wouldn't outrun them. Even the large predators were terrifyingly efficient. Take Tyrannosaurus rex, for instance. This isn't just a big lizard with tiny arms. It was a top predator with powerful jaws capable of exerting over 8,000 pounds of force, enough to crush bone and crush you along with it. Its vision was stereoscopic, meaning it had excellent depth perception, and studies suggest it could smell carrion from miles away. You wouldn't just be an easy meal. You'd be a target that could be tracked and hunted. And T-Rex wasn't the only giant. The Cretaceous seas were filled with enormous predatory reptiles like Mosasaurs, a 50-foot-long marine monster with a mouthful of sharp teeth, capable of ambushing anything that entered the water. You wouldn't swim for safety either. Speaking of water, the aquatic ecosystems were filled with their own dangers. The oceans were ruled by reptiles like plesiosaurs with long necks and deadly teeth, and ichthyosaurs, dolphin-shaped swimmers with huge eyes designed to hunt in deep waters. There were also giant sharks like Cretocaxarina, which could grow over 20 feet long. Even the rivers and lakes weren't safe. Massive crocodile-like reptiles, sometimes bigger than modern-day crocodiles, lurked in murky waters waiting for prey. Crossing a stream or drinking from a river could easily be fatal. And if somehow you evade the predators, climatry, and find some plants you can stomach, you still have to contend with the ecosystem's parasites and diseases. Microorganisms from that era evolved in parallel with dinosaurs and reptiles, and your immune system would have no experience with these ancient pathogens. From fungal infections to protozoans and bacteria, you'd be highly vulnerable. Even insect bites could introduce viruses or parasites completely foreign to humans. Mosquitoes and other biting insects were abundant and carried diseases. Imagine getting malaria or other infections in a time with no medicine. You wouldn't last long. The insects themselves were a hazard. The Mesozoic saw some of the largest flying insects in Earth's history. Giant dragonflies with 2-foot wingspans, massive cockroaches and beetles prowled the skies and forests. Not only were they intimidating, but their bites or stings could transmit infection or cause allergic reactions. Nighttime would be especially dangerous because without artificial light, you'd be vulnerable to nocturnal predators and insects with no way to properly defend yourself. Even the safe, herbivorous dinosaurs were dangerous. Many were massive animals with built-in defenses because predators were relentless. Triceratops had 3 massive horns and a large bony frill to protect its neck and intimidate attackers. Ankylosaurus was essentially a walking tank, covered in heavy bony plates and equipped with a powerful tail club designed to break bones. These creatures were not docile. They could kill or seriously injure a human easily if provoked or frightened. Even something like a stegosaurus could swing its tail spikes, called phagomizers, with deadly force. You might think of herbivores as peaceful, but in the Mesozoic, survival was brutal, and herbivores were well-armed and quick to defend themselves. If you somehow managed to avoid predators, parasites, and poisonous plants, you then have to face the biggest environmental challenge of all, the eventual mass extinction event that ended the age of dinosaurs. About 66 million years ago, an asteroid, roughly 10 kilometers in diameter, slammed into Earth near what is now the Yucatan Peninsula. The impact was catastrophic, releasing energy equivalent to billions of atomic bombs. It caused megatsunamis, global wildfires, and sent massive amounts of dust and aerosols into the atmosphere, blocking sunlight for years. This impact winter collapsed photosynthesis and disrupted ecosystems worldwide. Even if you survived the initial blast and fires, you'd face a world where food sources vanished, temperatures plummeted, and the air was toxic. Plants died off, herbivores starved, and the carnivores following them soon perished as well. Roughly 75% of all species on Earth disappeared. And as a lone human dropped into this disaster zone with no shelter, no technology, and no knowledge of survival in such extreme conditions, you would be facing almost certain death from starvation, cold, or exposure within weeks. In summary, the age of dinosaurs was a world utterly alien to humans. The air you breathe is different, the plants you rely on are absent or toxic, and every animal around you is either an efficient predator or a dangerous armored giant. The microbes and parasites would overwhelm your immune system, and the climate would sap your strength faster than you could run. Even if you somehow survived the everyday horrors, the final asteroid impact would seal your fate. The truth is simple. We survived by evolving after this era, benefiting from the extinction of dinosaurs and the rise of mammals. If you go back to the Mesozoic unprepared, you don't just fail to thrive, you don't survive at all.